Here we go. I think we're live. Hey there, guys. Hey there, English speakers. Welcome to another interview or conversation with a polyglot. Polyglot, obviously, is someone who, maybe not obviously, if you don't know, it's somebody who speaks several languages. And this is a new series I'm working on, and I want to bring to you. And I also want to get your feedback, whether you're enjoying this. So leave in the comments whether you're enjoying this, and if you have any suggestions to kind of improve what we're doing. But anyway, today we have Jessica on here. Now, Jessica speaks, you're going to see she speaks French and English and Spanish. We'll get into all that she speaks and her learning process, but something very interesting is French Sign Language. That's something huge, and we're on episode 2, by the way. So let me bring in Jessica, and let's get started.
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Jessica, very nice. I just learned my first French sign language.
First sign.
First sign. Hello, bonjour,
Hello.
I guess.
Bonjour. Yes,
Bonjour. Very nice. Excellent.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. You're number 2. Very special. So, so let's start. Where are you from first?
Well, it's a tricky question. I was born in France, in Paris, but I moved a lot when I was a kid. My dad was an engineer, and he got shipped all over the place. So my mom, my brother, and we followed. So I didn't grow up in France, but I'm from France.
Okay, where did you grow up? So how long did you live in France, and where are you now?
Well, right now I'm in Paris.
Okay.
I've been living in Paris for the past 16 years, something like that. I moved in September 2004. So a bit more than 16 years. But when I was a kid, we moved from Istanbul to Denmark, Brazil, French Guiana, Singapore, and Spain, Madrid.
Wow. Fantastic.
I think I did not leave one out.
You can correct us later. It'll come up as you're lying in bed tonight. Oh, I forgot. Yes. Portugal. So, by the way, your English accent is very nice. Where did you kind of pick up your English?
Thank you. Well, so the stay that we did in Singapore was was the longest stay that we did. It was from my 10 years old to my roughly 16 years old. So perfect years. And it was for 6 years. And English is one of the official languages there. So everyone speaks English. We had a Philippine living maid, but we spoke English with her. I was in the French lycée. But
the French what?
The French lycée, so the French school in Singapore. Sorry. So all our courses were in French. It was the French way of teaching. But we did have a bit more English classes than a typical French kid. I think it was 2 hours more than a typical French kid. And so that's where I picked it up.
Awesome. So out of traveling that much and living in that many spaces, how many languages do you speak, and on what level?
Well, French. Obviously, it is my first language. My parents are both French, and we spoke French at home. English is my second language, and I usually say that I'm bilingual, or at least fluent. I can talk about almost any subject that I would be able to talk about in French. I know nothing about nuclear physics, so I'm not going to speak about nuclear physics, but I wouldn't be able to do it in French either. I speak a little bit Spanish, but and I guess we'll get back to that later. I have a a difficult relationship with the Spanish language.
Interesting. We'll get back to that later.
Yeah.
What you mean by that?
And I've recently started learning French Sign Language. I had started 12 years ago, but I stopped quite quickly. And a year and a half ago, I started again, and now I'm fully committed to that language, and starting to be quite fluent. Still can't talk about nuclear physics in sign language, but getting
That's
there.
something that comes up, and we'll probably get into this later with language learners who get frustrated. We talked before, I'm an English teacher, and
Yeah.
something I see that a lot of people get frustrated because they want to be able to talk about everything. I think a lot of people hold themselves to higher expectations, especially in English, because it's a weird thing. The English, I think, is a lot different than other languages because people put so much expectations on themselves. And for example, talking about nuclear physics, I couldn't either in English. I couldn't even hold a big conversation about football in English.
Yeah.
But people kind of want to be able to talk about everything in English, and that's their bar for fluency. Have you noticed something like that?
Yeah, well, not for me personally. I've at some point I understood or decided, I don't know, that even in French, which is my first language, my mother tongue, I cannot talk about everything. So if I can't talk about that in the language that I am completely fluent in, of course, there's a big chance that I'm not going to be able to talk about it in English. But I also realized yesterday, I think, that there are some topics that I can talk about in English. Not
That you
topics, but
can't
that there
really
are some
in your native
words.
language.
Yes, and for example, I can't remember what movie we were watching, but we were watching a movie with that was taking place in a courtroom, and I realized that I know more vocabulary about legal stuff and laws in English than in French because, well, I don't know, maybe it's typically American, but there's often a courtroom in movies or TV series. So I know more about legal stuff in America than in France, and that's life.
Yeah. So that's really interesting, and that's something that I kind of try to help people realize too. That in a foreign language, it's kind of an opportunity to be a different person, right? Kind of and learn different
Definitely.
things. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that, and tell me if it's that way in sign too, in a way.
That's an interesting question. I hadn't. um, well, yes. Concerning sign language, the one thing that's very different from any other spoken languages is that, well, you talk with your hands, but not just your hands. Your whole face is very important because you can't talk and have a straight face, a poker face. It's not possible. You can sign and have a poker face. So the whole body is very active in talking. So even when I talk French or English, I've always been very
Animated.
yeah, very animated. Thank you. But it's even more important in sign language, and it means that there's a point where you have to let go of your shyness, let go of your smallness, if I can say, and just be free. So it does change a bit how you behave. And I said before that I started learning sign language about 12 or 13 years ago. I was a lot younger, obviously. And I think that I was still very, very shy and very in my shell, very, even just the shoulders,
Reserved.
yeah, very reserved. And it probably wasn't the best time to start learning sign language, because you have to be exuberant, and especially at first, the teachers force you to be even more exuberant than you need. They really push you to your extreme, and I was
Yeah.
probably not ready for that. So it felt really fake and really difficult, and like I would never be able to do it. And when I picked it up a year and a half ago, for multiple reasons that I don't even know what they are, that shyness was gone.
I think it's
And
called
it was
maturity.
perhaps, perhaps there's a little bit of that. And so that was completely gone. And suddenly I was very more open, very more free, and very more daring. And so before it, I felt stupid doing mimics or things like that, and now it seems completely normal.
Yeah. Oh,
So
great.
I changed, and the language changed me. It's all
That's beautiful.
all of it
Yeah.
together.
It's kind of like a chicken and the egg, right? And you
Yes,
said
exactly.
something very interesting that maybe it was too early to start sign language, but maybe it was early to be able to express yourself in that way. But it could have been the thing to lay the foundation to eventually 13 years ago, like make that click
Yes,
that you needed.
yes. I think it was also a good time to take the first step, even if the next step followed long after that.
Yeah, yeah, the same thing. I took Spanish in high school. I did. I don't say that I studied in high school because I didn't, and that's the big problem. But I think it laid some sort of subconscious layer that made it easier once I started living here.
I
You
understand
also
that.
Yeah, you also said that you over practice, right? And that makes it you have good motions, I guess, when you're actually talking. I kind of take the same approach. It's kind of a sports approach, actually, with speaking English, right? Because you over pronounce words, you
Yeah.
over exaggerate your intonation. And by the way, the facial expressions, I kind of connect that with sign language to intonation in your voice
Yes.
as we're
Typically,
speaking.
yes. Yeah,
Kind of
exactly.
shows the excitement or the fear or whatever.
Yeah, sadness, whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
it's particularly important in sign language, because sometimes there is so many configurations that you can do with your hands. At some point you're stuck, and so sometimes the same movement, um, you will do the same movement, but your facial expression will change the meaning of the sign. So it's very important that you have facial expression to make sure that your point gets across.
interesting. Just like intonation, is it
Exactly.
a record or is it record? It
Yes,
changes it. Can you think
exactly.
of an example? Can you show us an example?
In sign language,
Yeah.
yes. Yes, well, you have a yes, you have a dream, which is happy, or you're dreaming. It's a nice moment. And then you have a nightmare, which is
Oh, yeah.
so it's the same movement. It comes from rêver, so to dream, this is the R in the French alphabet. So it's the first letter of the word, and it's like it's your thoughts. So it's happy, you're
Interesting.
dreaming, but oh no, it's just this is not good. I'm falling, I'm
Interesting.
dying, I'm
Yeah, the same movement, the same word, but the
yeah,
different context.
just a different mimic.
Interesting. Okay. So, when you first started out learning languages, was it always something that you found interesting, or did you have to learn to love it? Like, how did that work?
Well, it's like you said before, for English and Spanish, I didn't have the feeling that I was learning. It's I was just, for English, it was all around me. I was soaked in it, so it felt very natural, just like learning French. I didn't really have the feeling that I was learning French. People were talking to me, and I picked it up, sort of. So it felt completely natural, even though I did have classes as a student, but still it felt completely natural. Spanish, as I said earlier, was a little bit different because um, just a little bit about, my story.
Yeah, let's get
When I
into
was
that. Let's
in,
get into your bad experience with your bad
so
relationship with Spanish.
yeah, I don't know the equivalence, but so it was the middle of my seconde, so it's the third year of before you finish high school.
Okay, so
So
you were around
I was
16?
around 16. Yeah, I
Okay.
was around 16, and we very suddenly, in the middle of the year, moved from Singapore, where I had just spent 6 years, to Madrid. And I was a kid, well, I was a teenager. I had all my friends, um, all my memories from 10 to 16 were attached to Singapore and to English in some way. And I was very upset that we were moving in the middle of the year, that I was going to a new school with new people in a new country. And I just stupidly now, I know it was stupid, but I just decided that I was going to hate it
Yeah.
no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
And
Teenage. It's
all that,
it's understandable in that
yeah,
situation.
I find it stupid now, but I still understand it as well. I mean, I understand why I acted like that, and it's too bad, but it's like that. It's the way it is. And so I decided that I would hate it and everything surrounding it. And on top of that, the Spanish teacher that I had in Singapore, because I was studying Spanish as a second foreign language, and it was just not a good teacher. I'm sorry to say that. It was really
Yeah.
not a good teacher. So I was around 15, 16, and she gave us huge A3 papers with drawings of different rooms, like the bedroom, the kitchen, the bathroom, whatever. And we had to color in the different shapes when we knew the word in Spanish. And I mean, I'm 15. I don't want to be coloring in class.
No, that's
I'm
very
done with
important.
that.
Being a teacher, I've done some teacher training. I have some teachers who follow the page, and that's very important to bring up too. That our jobs are very important to not only teach the grammar and have grammar and vocabulary, but give your students, especially teenagers, like a reason to want to engage with the language
Yeah,
more so than the mechanics.
and especially since, I mean, I'm guessing that it's even more difficult for teenagers because kids can be mean to each other.
Mm.
And when I arrived in Madrid, and of course some of my classmates were um, better at Spanish than I was. They were living here for years. Some of them were even Spanish, so of course they had a better Spanish than I did. And I have in Spanish, I have I don't know how to say that in English, but I have a very sh accent. I sh a lot,
What
and
do you mean?
I, well, I don't know. I would have to say a phrase in Spanish. I can't think of a phrase in Spanish.
Like you mean like instead of or
Yes,
in, okay.
yes, and they made fun of me for that, and which is
Mm.
typical of kids.
Teenagers.
So I don't hold it against them now, but still, it meant that it was difficult for me to express myself in English in Spanish class. Sorry, and since I had decided that I would hate it, this on top of that make just the whole process a real struggle. And I now realize that I can understand Spanish quite well. It's also, for some things, it's quite close to French, or we have the
Yeah.
same roots. So
Yeah.
speaking French, makes it easier to understand Spanish. So I can understand it quite well. I still have struggle expressing myself. And it's
Okay.
also because I don't have a lot of opportunity to to
Yeah.
practice. So of course it
Yeah.
gets rusty.
Yeah, for sure. Have you gotten over the psychological trauma connected with Spanish, or is it still lingering in the back of your mind a little bit?
No, now I'm fine.
Okay.
Now I'm fine. Yeah.
Because sometimes those can linger, and if they're not dealt with or anything, and it carries with you.
Yeah, no, now I'm fine. I've forgiven the people who made fun of me. I've understood that Spain is not such a bad country. I still think that the French high school in Madrid is not the best French high school of all the French high schools overseas, but apart from that, it's dealt with.
Yeah, nice. Let's move on. Another goal that a lot of English learners want, and because I ask people what they want, and they say they'd like to be able to think directly in English and not have to
I'm
translate.
sorry, I had a little
Um,
misconnection. So you said,
yeah, so like a lot of goals that English learners want is to be able to think directly without having to translate in their minds all the time.
yes.
How have you dealt with that? And is that still an issue for you, even at like higher levels? Something that I tell many learners and my clients and students that you're probably already doing it a lot more than you realize. And I think that's the first thing to notice.
Yes, I think it comes more naturally than we think. For me, in English, it comes very naturally, but I do notice that if I'm in a context where I have to speak English for a very long time, for example, for my work, sometimes I go to Ireland for a couple of days, and so for 2, 3, or 5 days, I will be mostly speaking English. Sometimes French if my colleague is here, and he mostly speaks French, not only. But when I spend 2 or 3 or 4 days speaking mostly English, at some point my brain will just switch, and going back to French is the struggle.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Going back
and
to your native language.
yeah, the words just come more naturally in English. I mean, yes, it's just French sorts of becomes my second language, which
Like,
feels
yeah,
I feel very stupid sometimes because I'm trying to talk French to my colleague and I just can't because the words won't come in French.
yeah. No,
So I do
I
feel
totally get it. I have some, we have English connections or Spanish connections or connections with people in a certain language. And some of my friends that used to only speak, I mean, my Spanish is kind of still a lower intermediate. It's not really great. So it's not that I'm so great in Spanish. It's that I have those connections to speak Spanish with certain people. And when they ask me to speak English, like I'm an English teacher, you'd think it'd be easy, but it's difficult for me to think of what to say to them.
I understand. And it's I did struggle. I still struggle in sign language, however, because the
That was my
syntax,
next question.
the phrases, the structure of the phrases is completely different in sign language compared to French, English, Spanish, and a lot of spoken languages. So the syntax is completely different, and you really have to at first, and still sometimes now, you have to struggle to put the words in a different order. And at first that was very difficult. I realized that I am completely incapable of speaking French while signing. I've been in that situation a few times where I was with maybe one deaf person and one hearing person who did not sign. So I had to play
both
translator.
roles. Yeah, wow.
and it was horrible for me because my brain just, and it's actually normal. The brain cannot compute two different languages at the same time.
Yeah, and that's really important to note that like sign language is technically another language. So it's
exactly.
not like a direct translation. And that's, I think, something that
Absolutely
people get
not.
wrong. I've thought this before I looked into sign language a little more deeply. It's not like you say the words and you make the exact same, signs, right?
No, it's absolutely not. It's really a complete, and especially for French Sign Language, it's a complete other language. I don't know much about American Sign Language. I know that they have two branches. One that is very close to the French Sign Language, so with a very different syntax and everything, and another American Sign Language, which is more which is closer to the spoken American language. And it's more like they help, they come as how to say this in English, they come as I cannot find the word, the things that you walk on when you have a broken leg.
Crutch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So nice. You see, sometimes I cannot find my words in English.
Yeah, me too. And that's another thing to remember.
Yeah. So it comes as a crutch to the spoken language, and they won't use as many signs. They will spell out a lot of the words. But the first branch, the one that's closest to French sign language, is a complete different syntax. And in sign language, we go from the widest angle possible, and we zoom in to what's happening. So, for example, I don't know. Let's say we have we're in a western. We have this town that you see in the desert, and you see it from afar, and there's the sun that's shining, and then you just zoom into the street. Maybe there are people standing in the street, and then you have.
Is that for people?
Yeah, that's for people.
Excellent.
In French,
awesome.
In French.
Yeah, in the French sign language.
And then you have two cowboys facing each other, and then you zoom into that cowboy, and he's got his eyes. He's very concentrated, and he's mean, and he has his. I'm not very well, but he has guns at his hip, and he's looking. Pow, and he shoots. So you really go from the core, where you are, when you are. It's daylight. So when, where, when, who, and then what's happening. And another much easier example that I saw recently is in English. You would say the glass is on the table. Okay, so very easy sentence. If you start in sign language with the glass, then he fell. Where is it? It's on the table. It can't work. So you have to put first the table, and then the glass is on the table. But if you start with the glass, yes, if you start with the glass, well, then you're kind of stuck. And if you let it go to put the table, well, it will just fall. So you start with the context, it's the table, and then you put the glass on the table.
That's so really interesting. That's a really interesting way to think of it.
Yes, I think so.
Like you're building context before the actual action.
Exactly. To me, it's a very logical language. It's also, of course, very visual. So some signs just make sense because a cat, you see the
whiskers,
mustaches of the cat.
Yeah.
So it's so logical. It makes so much sense that it wasn't as much a struggle to learn it. I did struggle at times,
Yeah,
but
for sure. Yeah, I'd imagine, especially when it comes to the grammar order and things. So what is your kind of best advice to language learners? Something you've learned from learning sign language that has helped you maybe in spoken language or vice versa? Anything that you can help language learners mentally, mindset-wise, technique-wise, the floor is yours.
Well, I think one of the first thing is to be motivated. If you're doing it for the wrong reason or for no reason at all, in my experience, it won't get you very far. The second thing, and I know it's not very easy right now with the COVID, and I don't know in Spain if your bars are open or closed,
They're
but here in
open
France,
until like
everything's
6, I think, now.
okay. Well, in France, everything is closed. We have no bars, no
Oh,
restaurants,
wow.
nothing. So it's a bit more difficult right now. But what I noticed in sign language really helped me is what we call café signe. So that's the sign, café signe. And yeah, café signe. And it's a mix between the word coffee and sign. So café signe.
I like it.
Café scene. And it's basically a moment where we get together. It's a meetup between people who are completely fluent in sign language, people who are complete beginners who only know how to say hello, for example, between hearing people and deaf people. So everyone just gets together in a cafe or bar and we sign. So
That's
we talk
awesome.
about anything that we want. There are no restrictions. Some café scene are more organized and you play games or things like that. The ones that I've been to, they are completely free. There's just a bar that's selected with a date, and anyone can come and anyone can sign. And it's it forces you to just go with it at some point.
To jump out of your comfort zone, I'd imagine.
Exactly. And so the first few times you're always a bit, you have the double effects of being sometimes with strangers. So that, I mean, I'm a little bit shy, so it's always difficult to go talk with strangers.
Yeah.
And to go talk in a language that you don't master. So it does require a bit of courage.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Oh, no. We lost your sound. Wait. Can you hear me? Can you? Oh, no. Can you hear me, Jessica? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? You can hear me.
So for some reason I was muted.
There we go.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, I don't know what happened because I saw both of your hands and then I saw that you were muted, but I can't unmute you. So,
well, the computer was tired of me talking, apparently. What was I saying? Yes, that at some point you want to talk about things more complicated than just what you ate yesterday for lunch. You want to talk about your family, you want to talk about politics, about the COVID situation, about I don't know what, but you want to talk about things that are deeper, and you want to express yourself, so you'll just try it. And sometimes there's beer involved, and I have to say that helps a little bit.
That helps. That absolutely helps. You know, that's always recommended. It drops your reservations. It helps you not care about making mistakes, because you're kind of supposed to make mistakes because you're a little under the...
Yes, at first anyone does so. And for more oral languages, for English or Spanish, I would say that anything that you can do to soak up the language. So, for example, a movie, watch it in its original language. So, an American movie, watch it in English. A Spanish movie, watch it in Spanish. With subtitles at the beginning, maybe with subtitles in your own language, and then when you feel more confident, you can put subtitles in the target language. Listen to the radio in the language that you're targeting. Anything that you can do, read books, anything that you can do to just soak up the language.
Yeah.
Drown your brain in that language.
Absolutely. Great advice. Great advice. And we will leave it there. Thank you for sharing your experience with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And let's stay in touch. Is there anything, like you mentioned about a community, you can tell us about your community, or anything?
Well, my community has nothing to do with languages. We talk about space.
Awesome. One of my favorite topics.
Well, perfect. So we are called chasseurs de nuit. So night hunters, but in French. And nice. And we talk about space. We talk about the stars, the planets, but from an artistic point of view, and not so much a scientific point of view. So we show you beautiful photos or music about space, acting about space, lots of things. And hopefully one day in sign language.
Awesome. Sweet. Is that a group on Facebook?
We have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
Awesome. There you go. Go follow her. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Thank you so much. And let's stay in touch. I'll send you an invite to the English Speaking Mastery. Not that you need it, but just in case.
If I can also help others.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always need people like that too. Very nice.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Excellent.
Have
Thank you.
a nice day.
You too. Okay. There you had it. There you have it. That was Jessica. We learned a little bit of sign language, and it was really, really exciting. Really great. Really great. I love sign language. Actually, that's a secret, not so secret pleasure of mine. But I like following some American Sign Language on Instagram, and I get my kids involved in sign language. Just to do little signs here and there, right? Because you never know when it'll come in handy. As Jessica said, it is really important to immerse yourself into a language. But if you do need extra help, I have just been putting a lot of more content, making Sweed Academy more simple for you to find what you're looking for. If you do need that extra little guidance in your English fluency, if you do need English fluency, you do need to speak better, you do want some guidance, I'm starting a membership program. So book a call, let's talk. Each week, we're going to have a different theme to discuss, to learn about, and a strategy to actually learn different parts of the language. So book a call. I'll put the link down below for you to join Sweed Academy for free. You can join for free and get a lot of content, know when we do things like this, and how you can join me on live lessons and things like that. But other than that, I've taken enough of your time. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, do all that stuff, and keep teaching, keep learning. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.